that.
And if they'd come to us earlier,
Yeah.
we could have helped. But when people come and say, you know, I've got the bailiff coming round tomorrow, if they'd come 2 or 3 days earlier even, it's easier to deal with those things. When it's the last minute, those things are quite pressured to have to deal with. Or if people were to come and say, you know, before they take the payday loan out, you know, what do you think the best idea? Well, we can work with people to actually get rid of the debt completely, not take another one out. You know, so it's all those sort of things. But I think people are very proud, aren't they? And they want to try and deal with it themselves. And I admire that. But sometimes the advice that people are given is the wrong advice, and it makes it worse. And that's what we're trying to do here, if we can, is build extra capacity into what we do. You know, when we started, we didn't think there was a need for clothes. Hadn't my wildest dreams think we'd need to give clothes out to anybody. And then you get families standing in the room that from domestic violence that have nothing, and you look around and we've got clothes that are virtually brand new, you know, really good quality stuff, and we give it all away. We give them prams out, we've got a cot downstairs, you know, every conceivable thing that comes, and families are desperate for that sort of help. It's not just the food, it's that as well.
And are you not finding that the biggest causation factor at the moment is perhaps the benefit sanction?
Low income is the highest thing in Eastbourne, from us here. That's the top reason. The numbers would be, let me see if I've got the numbers here. But we've seen a growth of only about 1% and a bit in the year, which isn't huge really. But low income, 30% of our business were people on low income. Benefit delays, 24%, and benefit changes, 10%. Whereas earlier last year, it would have been benefit changes top of the pile. Now, low income is the big one. And that's a lot of people who are 0-hour contracts, minimum wage on limited hours. So not necessarily, so it's two things. 0 hours contracts are the bad thing. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, they're bad things. For students, they're probably great, but for working people, they're pretty rubbish. Then you have low hour jobs on minimum wage, where people go home and they haven't got enough money to actually do anything. People can do week 3 and they can't do week 4, basically. Or if you get a washing machine break or a bill come in that hasn't been budgeted for because you can't budget, because you haven't got enough money to budget, you're just living, existing. That's the thing that throws people, and we're getting a lot of that at the moment. And I think across the country that probably is what's happening. So when you hear in Eastbourne that the unemployment figures are really down and very low, and it's into the 1 or 2% figures of unemployment, that might be right, but it's people that have been pushed into apprenticeships on £2 something an hour. It's people that have gone into 0-hour contracts. They've come off the unemployment figures, but they're not earning enough money to be able to create a living situation and be self-sufficient. So they're still reliant on benefits and still reliant on all of that stuff. So that's the real problem I think we face.
The reality is, if you take one of those contracts, you can't show consistent wage packets to the benefits office to get working tax credits.
No.
So you're completely stranded between the two things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's depends who you listen to really on all of this stuff. But if the local MP is into pushing the fact he's got these amazing apprenticeships, and yes, he has, and if they turn into real good paid jobs when the apprenticeship is finished, that's great. But if all they are is cheap labour and they don't turn into anything, that hasn't really worked. Okay, it's maybe work experience, but people need jobs, not work experience. And as you say, it's that trap where people are off the unemployment register, but they're not able to access the benefit they're entitled to because they're not able to demonstrate. It's a lot of that in the town, and particularly I think in a town like Eastbourne, where there's not a lot of manual work. You know, if you're in a big city, there may be warehouse jobs, manufacturing jobs. In Eastbourne, there isn't that. So it's service industry.
Or care workers.
Care work, service industry, all that sort of stuff, which is low paid, flexible hours or low hours, and that's the hope that you're trying to give to people in the town. So it's a bit of a pain, really. And will we be around in 5 years' time? I hope we're not, but I think we will. I think we will. But what we're trying to do here is, we've introduced a cooking project, so we're teaching people to cook, and we've got quite a lot of, about 20 people some weeks, sometimes maybe 10, it varies a little bit, who are learning to cook with food bank type food, learning skills that they can transfer to their own, home situation if they're cheap food, but tasty and different to just opening a tin. And so we're introducing that. Later this year we're going to be bringing a financial edge to it, where we'll help people with their budgeting and all that sort of stuff, and try and pick people off before they get too much in debt. Try and steer people a little bit and put them on the right path. We work with the credit union and all sorts of different people, and we've got banks that are interested in helping as well. And I think really what we've got to do is pull all that together a bit more. So the advice part of it is the growing thing, and the food part of Food Bank is still there, but it isn't the main reason. We try and offer the advice, the benefit, the guidance, the advocacy, the support, and the skills training, so that people can move on and be able to get proper work.
So ultimately, is it fair to say that the mere fact that you exist shows that there's a lack of something in government policy or successful?
I don't want to get political, but I think from my point as a working for a Christian charity, as a Christian, I think we ought to have compassion for each other. And I think this dog-eat-dog type world we live in, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, isn't the sort of society that I don't think most of us want to live in. That sort of society. I think people that are taking huge responsibility need to earn more than somebody that just turns up and does a little bit and goes home. But there needs to be that better sense of equality and that fairness, where I don't want my kids or my grandchildren in my situation to be growing up in a world where there's this massive divide between those that have and those that haven't. And I think that's the thing really I'd want to say to politicians. Come on, what are you doing to actually what are you doing to take the folk that are escaping with not paying their tax, the big corporates that aren't paying their tax at the top end, the bankers that are earning millions, what are we doing to sort that out and transfer some of that to help the people at the bottom to get going again and have that little bit more equality? And also, we've got a big push at the moment to look at social housing and temporary accommodation, because some of the quality of the accommodation that's on offer as temporary accommodation is pretty poor. And so we're having a bit of a drive on that to say, how can we get that to be improved? Because if people are living in poor accommodation that's maybe damp or has got mould on the walls or is cold, and you're also hungry, people haven't got any hope. And when you've got children that are then going to school from those situations, those children aren't learning, it puts pressures on the school. It's just a whole system, a spiral. Something has to change. And I think from a political point of view, I think it's probably a nightmare to work out how to make it work. And I'm glad I'm not a politician, but there has to be more equality in our society, I think. And there has to be more care for those people. The person that's the skiver, the person that can't be bothered, the person that just wants to live on the benefits and not make any effort. I think we do see those here, but absolutely, utterly in the minority. The vast majority of people that come through Food Bank that we see here are people that really don't want to be coming, that really would love a job if there was a job going, and they'd love to provide for their family. But the work that's on offer is just not worth taking half the time because it's so poorly paid, or the hours are so inflexible. And that's the thing that has to be sorted out, I think, in the town.
Okay, well, Howard, on behalf of the wider community, I'd just like to say thank you for all of your efforts over the years, and thanks to all your volunteers.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.